Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm TJ, the creator of TJ's Magic Touch, and in today's video I'll be showing you something just a little bit different. I'm going to design these little cutouts for party blowers, and I will be using a couple of different softwares to do it. Most importantly, I will be using Photoshop, but I will also be using Adobe Illustrator, and I will show you how to do the Illustrator part in Inkscape, as well as I will show you how to set up a print and cut for Silhouette Studio. Now, Silhouette Studio is not my lane, but it is something that I use periodically when I don't want to hand cut or when there is cardstock work that I need to cut out. So without further ado, let's get into this video. Whenever you purchase this file from andrinascreations.com, and I will list the link in the video below, you will receive a zipped file with two setups in it. One will be for Silhouette Studio and the other one will be just an SVG. The one we'll be using today in this video is just the SVG. Since I work primarily in Photoshop when it comes to design, and I haven't quite figured out the best way to go about using an SVG in Photoshop, I have to use Adobe Illustrator in order to break up a vector image and bring it over into Photoshop. So I'm going to show you what Adobe Illustrator looks like. This is the face for Adobe Illustrator and what I will be using. So I'm going to click File and Open, and I'm going to open up the SVG. Now, I know most of you probably only have the Adobe Photoshop photography plan, which is truly all that you need when it comes to design. However, my business has grown and I do more design work and graphic design, as well as I am working on a few certifications with Adobe. So I personally have the entire Creative Cloud, which is why I have access to Adobe Illustrator. It is not necessary. I will show you how to do this same step in Inkscape, which is a free vector program. Now back to our template. I am going to right click on our template and I am going to ungroup. Once I ungroup, I will have access to each piece of this vector in order to drag and drop, which is my favorite method to use in Photoshop. I'll be able to do that same technique with this file into Photoshop. So now I'm going to go back to Photoshop, and this is basically the new document panel. I'm going to click on Create New, and I'm leaving everything the same. I will set it up as a basic 8.5 by 11 sheet. Typically I work based on the size that I'm designing on, but for this particular project that is not necessary. So I'm just going to open up an 8.5 by 11, leave my resolution at 300 and continue to work at pixels per inch and click Create. Now what you are going to see in the bottom right hand corner is a shot of my second monitor where I have Adobe Illustrator opened, and I kept it open in my second monitor so that I could show you both screens at the same time while I utilize the drag and drop method. So you can see in the bottom corner, as I am dragging it off of Illustrator, I am pulling it into Photoshop, and I will do this with all three pieces. Now with bigger vector graphics that have more layers and more pieces, this is not a feasible way to go. Your best bet would be to design in Illustrator. But since that is a new learning curve for me, this is what I do and it works pretty well. The measurements also tend to stay the same, so there's no real need to adjust. But if you did need to adjust, again, like I said, Andrina's template provides the measurements for you. So I'm going to drag the other two pieces in. As you can see, it still sits on top perfectly. And right here, I did not double click to place my image, which is something you always have to do no matter what part of Photoshop you're working in. You have to place whatever you're bringing into Photoshop. So after I place it, you can see that now I have all three pieces on my screen and I'm able to design in Photoshop. Illustrator is no longer needed. I noticed, I actually didn't notice until I started to edit my video that I did not change my workspace layout. However, the design today is fairly basic, so it should be pretty easy to follow along, but I'll make sure to point out every single thing that I use. I am doing an Among Us theme for my son's birthday. His birthday is actually already passed, and by the time I finish uploading the entire series, his party probably will have passed also. So now to get started with the whole design process, I'm going to start by clicking my first layer and changing the color to black. So I'm going to click on my color panel and change it to black, my paint bucket tool, and yes, you always want to rasterize. Click on it and now the layer is black. Control Z to undo, and another way to do this is to click on FX and color overlay, and it will be set to black since black is the last color that I use. Now onto the top layer, which is this green piece, I am going to do the drag and drop method as well as create a clipping mask. So in order to do this, as you see, I just drag in my digital paper, I drop it directly onto the image that I want it, or the graphic that I want it to be on. I will click on layer and create clipping mask. This sits the paper within the shape, and then I'll just go and adjust the paper how I want it to be on the shape. Once I get it to where I want it to be, I will double click to place it. At this point, if I were to move just the layer without it being one solid set, the piece would move. So I'm going to click on Control, make sure that my digital paper is selected, as well as the layer underneath. I'm going to right click and I'm going to merge layers. Now my paper and my graphic are one piece, and I don't have anything further to do after that. Like I said, this design was going to be pretty simple, so I'm going to drop that layer on top of the bottom layer, and then I'm going to add the dots on top. At this point, if you wanted to, you'd simply click on Control again, merge the layers, the same step. Now you have one solid piece. After doing so, you can take that layer, drag it down to your plus sign, and duplicate it or make a copy of it in order to piece it multiple sets on the screen. So without setting up a print and cut, you can actually fit 4 of these per screen. Then you can file, save as a PDF since it's already set up on an 8.5 by 11, and then print it out and cut by hand. But again, I'm not cutting by hand, so I'm going to delete all of those layers as well as remove my background in order to make the background transparent. I'm going to go to File, Save As, and I am saving this image as a PNG in order to open it up in Silhouette Studio. Now I am going to open up Silhouette Studio. I have Silhouette Studio Business Edition, as you can see on the screen, and I am going to bring my PNG image onto the screen. Now, before I do that, I'm going to click on Page Setup and turn on my registration marks. Once my registration marks are on, I'm going to open up my file and I'm going to bring in the PNG that I just created in Photoshop. I can fit 3 of these per sheet, so I'm going to right click and duplicate, and then I repeat that step, right click and duplicate, in order to get my 3rd one. I After I have my page set up the way I want, I'm going to click on print in the top left hand corner and print once it pops up on the screen. I'm going to make sure my paper and my ink preferences are the way that I want them to be, and then I'm going to select the number of copies that I want to make and click print. Remember, I am printing these on photo paper. I thought about cardstock, but I really just wanted it to have a little bit of a different look, so I used photo paper instead. Now I am going to send my print and cut image to cut. As you can see, my portrait 2 here in the corner is ready. So once I finish loading up my portrait, then I will send my images to cut. As promised, I am showing you how to take your SVG and open it up in Inkscape. I do not use Inkscape. Inkscape is not something I am interested in using or learning, but I did want to show you a free alternative that you can use if you wanted to change your SVG files into a PNG for whatever reason. So I'm going to open up the SVG file. The Silhouette Studio file obviously is for Silhouette Studio only. So I'm going to open up the SVG portion of the template by going to File and Open. And then I'm going to open up Party Blowout SVG. Once I select the file and click Open, the SVG will open on my screen. So with the SVG selected, I'm going to right click and click on Ungroup. This separates the SVG into individual pieces, and from here I am able to export each piece as a PNG. This space over here to the right is actually your design space if you were going to work in Inkscape. So be careful not to have your images over this line, because that is the part of the PNG that will save instead of your whole graphic. So once you have the piece selected, you're going to come over to this far right hand corner that says Export PNG Image. Click Export As, and then you'll see PNG show up on your screen. And you would do that for all 3 pieces. Now, I'm not going to save all 3 pieces as a PNG, but it is literally the same concept as what you just saw. And you just want to make sure that however you save it, when you go to open it up in your next software, that you hold on to these measurements. If you are opening Inkscape and you don't see the export PNG on the right, simply go to File and go down to where it says Export PNG Image, and the box will pop up on the right. So here is my print and cut. I actually love the way these came out. I know sometimes it is difficult to get a print and cut to do right. And these are the Party Blowouts that I will be using. I got this 8-pack from Dollar Tree in the party section. Remember, no two blowouts are created the same, so sometimes they slide on quite easily and other times they do not. I'm going to carefully open this packaging because I do want to keep the bag, and as I was opening it, I noticed that part of the streamers was stuck in the staple, so I'm gonna have to cut that out later, but I wanted to make sure that I did not damage the bag in the process of opening. So now I'm gonna take the wider hole and insert the Party Blowout into the wider hole first, and then through the back and into the smaller hole on top. One of the good things about the design that I chose to do is the fact that the images are up and down, so that I can know easily which direction the template needs to slide on. Right here is where the staple was caught in the streamer, so I just took it out of one side, and then the side that it was too tangled, I just grabbed my scissors and snipped it out. Once I finish placing all of the cutouts onto my Party Blowouts, I will put them back into the bag that they came in, just to make it easier to transport them and to keep them from possibly being damaged while I am taking them to the place where we will have my son's party. Also, you can, if you are doing this for a customer, you can make a bag topper after you repackage these and put your own custom bag topper on top. So here is the finished result. I'll probably do some type of bag topper tutorial, but for right now, this is it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please do not forget to like, comment, share. Sharing is caring, and subscribe, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye guys.